Welcome in to the August edition of Drawing a Crowd, the Business of Sports Tourism. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. And this month, we've got the Maryland Cycling Classic back better than ever. A lot of changes. And to talk about it, we've got two incredible guests. Bobby Julich, the men's competition manager of the 2025 Maryland's Cycling Classic, and Joanne Kiesanowski, the women's competition manager of the 2025 Maryland Cycling Classic. And along with them is my partner back after a couple missed months, but it's great to see Terry Hasseltine. Terry, how are you?
I'm doing outstanding, Stan. This is going to be a great conversation. We got two rock stars in the cycling industry going to lay out the course of how we pick the athletes and how we get these teams on the road and show off world-class cycling here in the state of Maryland.
All right, before we do that, Terry, want to take care of a little business. The 20 the This has been an incredible event for you, but it has been marred by first the pandemic, which canceled it 2 straight years. Then last year, because of the terrible bridge collapse tragedy in March of 2024, shortly thereafter, you canceled it, postponed it, and put it off for a year, and that made perfect sense. Talk about what went into making that decision to cancel the event for 2024, and then we'll get into some other things.
Well, yeah, so canceling the event was an extremely tough decision, knowing that the event takes place in September.
Yeah.
But we also know that the city and the state were going through something that was extremely challenging, not understanding where resources were going to have to be deployed, where traffic was going to be deployed, etc. And we were at a time with UCI and the US Cycling that they had to make decisions about sanctioning and some other things in the process. And we also were at the time where we were starting to engage teams about coming over to participate. And with so many unknown factors, the board of directors of the Sport and Entertainment Corporation, along with some other key, leadership, determined that it was probably in our best interest to take a hiatus for a year while we figured out where all those assets were going to get deployed, where traffic patterns were going to be, and then to figure out what was really going to be the future of the cycling classic. And as you'll see in the conversation we're about to have, you'll see we're coming back stronger.
Yep.
We have both men and women. We have a lot of firsts happening in the cycling sphere with our new 18 plus mile circuit, all in the city limits. We are extremely grateful for the city of Baltimore, the state of Maryland, and our sponsorship partners and the like who stuck with us during this challenging time and have come back to support us bigger and better to ensure that we deliver a world-class event on the streets of Baltimore here on the 6th of September. So, and we hired a great dynamic team as we're going to about to jump into, those who've been instrumental in building up the rosters on the women's side as well as on the men's side. And I couldn't be more elated that they're part of this team helping us get to this end line and putting that event on the roads here.
So one more question for you about this. The fact that I know that it was always in the cards we were going to have a women's division, but the fact that the course is in the city of Baltimore exclusively now, is that part of the aftermath of the bridge collapse? In other words, is this a logistical decision, or was it just sort of something you always had in the mind to do?
There's several factors that played a role in going into in the city circuit only. One was when you're now adding 8+ hours of racing or of road time in an environment, the resource demand on city, fire, EMS, also flaggers and volunteers and the like creates a unique challenge. And when you bring a course like this together, it allows operationally and also a better fan experience. So getting the race back in full action, knowing that we had all these other logistical things to work, it creates a better portfolio for us to get to point A to point B on the course in this first year. But it also aligns with our future vision about how we plan on expanding the cycling classic in years to come. And that is still to be determined. But having a route like this, knowing that we have a good partner up in the county and other counties around the city of Baltimore that want to engage in the future, This is a perfect step and a perfect growth strategy for the cycling classic in 2025 with the addition of the women's race as well to make sure that we get our operations buttoned down and locked down first before we talk about growth in additional days or growth in additional opportunities in and around our event as we look to the future of cycling on the roads of Maryland.
Terry, I'm going to let you kick off the questions for Bobby and Joanne.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. So obviously, I'm very excited to talk to these two individuals because they've been nothing but professionals in helping us build the program and the platform we're going to deliver. So I'm going to start with Joanne. Obviously putting together a women's race for the first time, here tied to the Maryland Cycling. What were some of the unique challenges of talking to the teams and getting them convinced that coming to Maryland was in their best interest?
Hi, everyone. Well, I think, because you have had a men's race, for quite a few years now and it's established, that did make it a little bit easier, of course, because everybody had heard of the Maryland Cycling Classic and, everybody's excited to have the women's race alongside it now. So, yeah, definitely needed. And yeah, everybody appreciates that. But of course, it's a long way to come to Baltimore, Maryland, and for a lot of teams, because a lot of the teams that we're trying to get are racing in Europe. So it's quite a stretch to fly all the way over from Europe to Baltimore. Um, so yeah, so we just had to try to convince them that, we're going to put on a fantastic race. I think the course, as Terry was talking about, is going to be really exciting this year. We have a lot of new aspects to the course, including cobbles, including, up and around the monuments and Mount Vernon, around Patterson Park, the climb up the north end. So, there's a lot of like great aspects to the course now. And so that's what we're trying to tell the teams. It's just a vibrant course, it's going to be exciting, it's dynamic. We've never done this course before, so we don't know what type of rider can win. We're not really sure if it's going to be a big bunch sprint. We're not sure if it's going to be a solo rider coming. We're not sure how the climb's going to go. For some of the pelotons. So it is that sort of race where like the teams can bring a variety of riders, and then we'll see this first year how the course plays out. And yeah, as Terry alluded to, the future is important as well, for USA cycling, to that we can bring some UCI international races, to USA again. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put on high quality races. And yeah, this 1 day race now, we can only build from there.
Outstanding. Well, Bob, a similar question to you. Obviously, we had the men's race in 22 and 23, and we had great success running a point to point from the county down into the city. And you were very instrumental in being a part of that as an ambassador, and now you're a full member of our team. Because of taking the year off and the year in which the Olympics occurred, and then obviously with our situation here, what were some of the unique challenges that you faced trying to get some of the teams to return, but at the same time add some new additions to the men's roster?
Yeah, hi everyone. It was definitely a new experience for me. I've worn many hats in the cycling world. This is the first time I've ever took on a challenge as the men's competition manager. So it was the hard part was just getting, teams change, riders change, staff changes, the boss of some of these teams that make these decisions, if they can or can't go to a race like this, change. So the my biggest challenge at the beginning was getting to the right person of basically every world tour and pro team level team out there. That took a while, but luckily I've been in the sport for over 40 years, and cycling is a community, is a family. So once the word started getting around, I was able to get in contact with the correct people. But like Joanne mentioned, it's a long ways to get from Europe to America. The teams over there, they have their buses, they have their kitchen trucks, they have their vehicles, they have their way of doing things. And that was always the challenge for American riders going over to Europe was we're playing in their sandbox. Now they're playing in our sandbox. And sometimes it's easier to say no than to kind of be outside of your comfort zone a little bit. But I think the biggest challenges are still to come because everything in this sport revolves around the Tour de France. So we were able to make contact with the teams, but they were really focused on the Tour de France. As soon as the Tour de France was over, they go on like maybe a week of vacation, and then the emails start, all the details, all the questions, all the requests. And that's going to be a challenge for, I think, for all of us, is we are going to put on a fantastic event in the Maryland Cycling Classic, but something as little as minute as a missed pickup at an airport or a wrong meal time, that's going to be our challenge, because we want to give the best experience possible for some of these young riders coming from Europe, coming to America for the first time. So they're super excited about it. The course this year is phenomenal. Joanne and I got to go and check it out, and I think we were both shocked of how the city, this whole entire organization, everyone involved were able to put this together, 18-mile circuit with so many incredible pinch points and just unique characteristics to a course that we don't normally see in road cycling. So it's been a fantastic experience. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait for our team, to show off the Maryland Cycling Classic, the state of Maryland, the city of Baltimore, to our European guests.
Bobby, if I could follow up that, could you talk a little bit about what those teams in Europe, the demands that they're under? In other words, this clearly, it takes months in planning what a team's schedule is going to be. How in demand are those teams? And as a follow-up to that, how much has the reputation of the Maryland Cycling Classic played into their desire to be here?
Oh boy, that's a lot there. You know, the the unique part of this whole crazy world of cycling, like I said, it kind of revolves around the Tour de France. So there's all this buildup, and then the Tour de France is the biggest race in the world. But then it's almost like, okay, what do we do now? The second part of the season, even though we're going to be in September, it's kind of considered the second part of the season. There are so many races. There's 4 races going on simultaneously over in Europe or around Europe right now. So you really have to think about, most of these teams have 30 riders, at least on the men's side. And if they're doing 2 programs, 3 programs, or 4 programs, that means that all those riders have to be healthy, because a lot of guys get, tired after the Tour de France. There's injuries that take place. So team allotment and team planning, and that's another thing with the registration and the enrollment forms, it could change up until 72 hours before the start, because somebody could get sick, somebody could get injured. Somebody had a family issue. So it's so many challenges, and for the teams to take time, realize that they have to pack up everything, because normally they just drive to the races with their buses and their vans and their fancy entourages, right? To pack up 14 bikes, so 7 riders in the men's team. They're probably bringing a race bike and a spare bike, and then all the mechanic material, the tools, the cooler boxes, the massage tables. It's a big undertaking. We're starting to see some of the packaging lists come in from the teams, and it's like 45 pieces that they have to bring to the airport, pay the excess charges, hope that it gets to Maryland undamaged.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just a crazy organized chaos, traveling circus, really, the cycling world is.
Let me follow up then with Joanne. Joanne, I know it's new, the women's division, but the reputation of this race in the couple of years it's run, how did that help you enlist teams to come here?
Yeah, as I said before, it does help, that there was a race before. So so people can look at things on YouTube or social media or things like that, and to see how it played out. But as we just said before, this is a completely new course. So in terms of the strategy and things like that, that's completely new. But I think in general, like the races in North America have a very good reputation of being very well organized. So once again, we have a really, really great team behind us all. So Bobby and I are, out there, trying to, get the teams to come here and entice them here. But in saying that, like the teams know they've done, races in the past, that used to be, for example, Tour of California, the Tour of Colorado, Tour of Utah. There's a whole lot of races that we've had, Philadelphia Classic, just down the road. So there's been a lot of, iconic events in America over the years. And so teams want to be a part of that. They want to be like, okay, is this the next one that's going to be around for 20 years? Right. So I think it's like, it's great that like we're building something. And this is the first year we're having the women's race. And, as I said, we're just going to, keep building on that. And whether that's, another day of this, or this also creates, another 1 day race somewhere else in North America, or another tour, another in North America, because people see what we're doing. So as I said, hopefully this just leads to more growth in professional cycling.
Terry, before I turn you over to a couple more questions, I want to ask you, can you set the scene? What's the day of the race and some of the events surrounding the race? I know the races, both divisions, are on Saturday, September the 6th.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the other community events and
Absolutely. Absolutely, Stan. I mean, this is more than just a 1 day race. There's an accompaniment of numerous events that go on leading up to, the big race. The women's race is at 8:35, taking off from Harbor Point and then finishing on Pratt Street somewhere, probably about 11:15, 11:30-ish. And then there's about a 45-minute break there, and then the men take off at 12:30 from Harbor Point. And then we'll finish up or wrap up probably somewhere 4:30-ish, right, Bobby? Somewhere 4:30, 4:45, somewhere. So we have about 8 hours of racing on the streets. But the night before, we have team introductions, which is free to the public event down at Harbor Point between the Constellation Building and T. Rowe Price in that plaza there, the Center Plaza, where we'll introduce all the teams on both the men and women's side, followed by a free to the public concert. We have secured. It's hard for me to say it. I'm a Maryland guy, but the name of the band is Virginia Coalition. But and my wife is not the lead singer, but it is Virginia Coalition. So we'll have a free concert that evening on the plaza. We'll also have some of our local clubs will be finishing some of their local rides right there on the plaza as well. So it's a gathering, it's a community gathering, free to the public event. We'll also be in 4 or 5 schools throughout the days prior to, delivering bikes to some of the schools, delivering content with some of the athletes at some of the other schools, showing the healthy lifestyle of cycling and how it's important, and also, creating discipline in your approach on exercise, your discipline on how you create time in your schedule to build in quality of life opportunities. And then we'll have an opening press conference on that Wednesday that will kick the whole thing off. And then a lot of ancillary pop-up events that will happen throughout the week. Some are known, some aren't known, but it's really about a big celebration of bringing the cycling community together, and also engaging maybe non-cyclists to get exposed to this great sport. Is one of the highest profile sports in all the world. You got soccer obviously sitting up there probably in the top echelons, but cycling is, sitting in that 2 or 3 spot when it comes to popularity across the world. And we're just excited that we're taking, like I said, 1 day of really awesome competition, both on the women's side and the men's side, and surrounding it with community engagement. And last but not least, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Kaiser Permanente will be doing a bike jam during the men's race over in Patterson Park, free to the public, free for kids to come out and learn bike skills, go through a bike obstacle course, do a little ride over in Patterson Park, all inside the circuit of the Maryland Cycling Classic. So anything and all things that we can do to expose people to cycling and to being a part of the biking community, is what the cycling classic is all about. And the fact that we're, in the sports commission and the sport corp, one of our biggest things that we pride ourselves on is that we're creating equitable competition in all the things that we participate in. So cycling, men and women, equestrian event, men and women compete equally, for the crown of the 5-star. The AAU Junior Olympics is a multi-sport discipline event for the Maryland, for the Sport Corp that allows boys and girls of all ages to compete in various sports throughout 10 days of competition. And then we have the Preakness Festival, which is the culmination of communities coming together to celebrate the future of the Preakness and the week of the Preakness Stakes. So we're just really excited that now the Cycling Classic meets the standard of care that we look at in making sure that we provide equitable competition for both men and women.
Terry, you got a couple more questions for our guests, and then we'll let them get out of here because I know they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we're holding them up, Stan. But at the end,
September,
Joanne, this one is to you. Obviously we're featuring a circuit for the first time. We have cobbles in it. Where do you see some of the biggest moves on the course as it's currently laid out on the women's race?
Yeah, I think the cobbles will be like, they're really rough, as Bobby was saying. Like we went and rode the course a few weeks ago, and we were both like, "Oh, these are legit." These are like these aren't just like paving stones. So as I said, like that's sort of an area, obviously not like the first lap, but like maybe on like lap 3 and 4. Some teams can make a difference there because it's just really tight and technical, and there's a lot of corners, in this course. So if you can just like create some separations through the cobbles, just gap some people off every now and then, and you keep pushing, over sort of that whole way through Patterson Park. Then maybe you're able to create some separation. And then obviously the climb at the top end of the course, it's about 1 kilometer. It's just over half a mile. And so that's definitely going to like sting the legs. And so if somebody is attacking, just before that climb gets a gap or attacks, into the bottom corner of the climb, things like that, I think that can really, really hurt the legs, at least. And maybe that takes the sting out of some of the sprinters' legs, and that's what the different team strategy will be, right? Just to play to their strengths. If they have a sprinter, well, they'll be wanting to like, keep the pace down on that climb and let their sprinter hang on as best as they can. But if they don't have a sprinter, then they're just like all in, probably attacking at various points on the course. After the top of the course, it's like a big, like long sort of downhill, all the way back through the city. But once again, it's technical, so you can still, create some gaps, in any one of those corners, when you have a few corners in succession, anything you can do to create a gap into that final straight. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to just, get a 10-second gap and hold it to the line. Yeah. But there's plenty of points. I think the Mount Vernon section 2, same thing, just like super technical, you're going through these corners, around some skinny parts, past that monument. That's also a kicker, up to the high point there. So yeah, lots of great places to watch as well, as spectators. And that's the great thing, keeping it all inside Baltimore. You get to see the riders a lot more on this course. So I think that's exciting from a fan perspective. You can be sort of around the finish line area, but you can also walk off, 500 meters and go and see them on the cobbles or go and see them coming in. So you can see them in a few different parts of the course there.
If I can close with this question for both of you, at any one time in the women's division and then in the men's, Bobby, how many riders will there be out on the course?
And the women's race, we capped it at 15 teams. So that's a total of 90 riders maximum. So that's if every team has the full complement of 6. But as Bobby was saying, there's a few people that'll be like out because of injury or just a crash or something like that. But yeah, 90 is the maximum.
And Bobby's
saying, anywhere from about 80 to 90.
And Bobby, is that about the same for the men's?
Yes. We have 14 teams of 7 riders, and There's some teams that were getting word that they can only bring six because of the other obligations.
Right.
But it's going to be really exciting for everyone to watch. And to reiterate on Joanne's point a little bit, it is very little flat sections in this race, and it's extremely technical in a lot of it. And if you're watching a race on TV, say like the Tour de France, and you see everybody like bunched up all across the road, that's just not going to happen in this race. It's going to be single file, stretched, the front of the peloton and the rear of the peloton could be a couple hundred meters long. And then you have all the follow cars behind them. So I do not see it being just a walk in a park, because with that many technical sections, and especially throwing in a cobblestone section, cobblestones are like rocket fuel. You put those in a race, everyone thinks about them, everyone's excited, everyone's aggressive, and then you throw in the technical parts, including the climb and up around Washington Monument. It's going to be a very, very difficult race, and with the large amount of people starting, I could envision maybe less than half actually finishing, because once you are out of contention in a circuit race like this, the temptation is just to pull over to the side of the road because we passed the team hotels. So I think it all depends on, it's very late in the season. Guys and girls are tired. Not everybody's going to have a great day. There could be some people suffering from jet lag, or maybe lack of motivation on the day, or just not feeling good. So it's going to be very, very interesting, and I think it's going to be quite this spectacle for both cycling fans and non-cycling fans in the city of Baltimore.
Terry, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
I know that you want to get as many people out on the streets watching this event, but one of the things that's pretty amazing is watching it on television. Maryland Public Television has been a great partner with you in the previous two. In light of the environment right now, is Maryland Public Television still involved with this year's race?
Maryland Public Television is right there as a solid partner with us again. We are going to be not only Maryland Public Television, but we are working with outside. We're working with YouTube and others to make sure that this race is streamed both domestically and abroad, to the 80 plus countries that we anticipated. So again, this is a postcard to the world, showing the best of the best in the cycling community on the streets of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. So it's a postcard to the world. So our opportunity to tell the Maryland story through cycling and showcase these beautiful hamlets that make up the city of Baltimore and the route in which Joanne and Bobby just shared with us. So I'm excited. I just want to get the athletes here. I want to get the fans in here, and I want to line those streets and the fan zones throughout this entire course and just watch really great racing and really get a chance to showcase the beauty of the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland to the world.
Terry, I got to ask you one thing, not to take anything away from Kaiser Permanente, H&S Family Bakeries, Harbor East, all your great sponsors. But Kelly Benefits, John Kelly, who's the chairman of your event, I know he is incredibly psyched to have a women's division. It's incredible. I know how bummed out he was last year when the event had to be postponed. How involved is he?
John is very involved. He's been an instrumental partner in ensuring that we get the resources that we need, make sure he's connecting us with the right partners, and making sure that his voice is heard and what he would like to see from a competitive perspective. So he walks hand in hand with our team as it pertains to this event. We are blessed to have someone like John Kelly, who really appreciates the sport and really appreciates the value that it brings to the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. Couldn't ask for a better champion.
All right. I thank our guests, Bobby Julich and Joanne Kiesanowski, for joining us. Terry, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I'll look forward to talking next month. Remember, marylandcyclingclassic.us/partners, or actually just the marylandcyclingclassic.us is the way to look it up online to find out where the race is going to take place. It's coming.
And if you want to put the /partners on there, Stan, you can, because we can always use more partners.
That's good. Good point. Good point. thank you to our guest. And
Thank you.
this is really exciting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. And get to Maryland safe in a couple of weeks. We look forward to seeing you, Joanne and Bobby.
All
Will
right.
do.
Talk soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
That does it for this edition of Drawing a Crowd, the Business of Sports Tourism. For Terry Hasseltine, I'm Stan the Fan Charles.